This is SoundNotion, the weekly podcast for new music and music news. I'm Patrick Gulo.
I'm Nate Blake.
I'm David McDonald.
And I'm Sam Merciers. And joining us this week is friend of the show, freelance performer, educator, and new mom since we last had her on the show, Rachel Yoder. Rachel, welcome back to SoundNotion.
Happy to be here.
Since we last talked, some things have changed for you guys. In addition to having your beautiful baby boy Edward that we got to see a minute ago, you've moved to Seattle. And I was asking the panel, first off, wanted to talk about being in Seattle, which is a pretty famous music scene in certain ways. And nobody on the show had heard of these guys, but they sound very interesting. You're playing with the Seattle Modern Orchestra now that you've moved out there?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I've done, I think, 3 concerts with them now. We have another one coming up in June.
So is it like a smaller chamber kind of setting most of the time, or do they do full-blown, big-time orchestra stuff? Or
it ranges, and there are I would say I've been very impressed by the how adventurous they are as far as just choosing crazy pieces with multiple different instrumentations, some larger pieces, and making it all work. The piece we're doing by George Friedrich Haas in June, I think, is for 18 musicians total. So I think that's about as big as it gets. So
okay. Well, we had never heard of them, but it sounds like a great project. And they have a composer in residence, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's 2 co-artistic directors, Julia Tai, who's the conductor, and Jeremy Jolie, who's a composer, and he attends all the rehearsals, offers artistic input, and they work together to run the group.
Right. Well, awesome. So we'll have an in if we want to get somebody from that group on the show, which I think I would like to.
Sure, definitely.
You'll put in a good word for us?
Oh, yes.
Awesome. So I see here that you're going to be playing at, I forgot the acronym, ICMC later this year, actually playing one of your husband, Greg Dixon's pieces called Fracture. Had you ever played at a big like computer music thing like this before?
Yeah, I've played at Seamus before when it was up in Minnesota, and presented, I think, at a different Seamus. Trying to remember now, but I've never gotten to play at an ICMC, so that'll be fun. And it's back in our old stomping grounds of Denton, Texas, coming up this end of September at the University of North Texas.
Right. So is it? Do you feel like you fit in when you're there? Like you're an acoustic musician, and like there's the constant nerd talk going on? Like, does it feel strange? Does it feel different than a normal? Normal is not the right word. Does it feel different than other music conferences?
Yeah, it does. There's never a line for the women's restroom, and but I really enjoy it for the most part. I don't get into the super geeky stuff, and I'm not a music programmer and or really a composer, but I've found that over the years, since I've gone to many electroacoustic music concerts, that I have really gained an appreciation for the genre, an ability to detect the quality of the pieces, and it really is an acquired taste kind of thing. The more that you listen to it, the more you can sort of dig into that genre. So I do enjoy going to the concerts for the most part, and learning about new works and seeing what the performers do when they're live performers.
Do you think that your experience being married to someone who is very much into this genre of music, I would imagine you've had a lot of time to learn what the troubles can be and how to deal with presenting that kind of music. Do you think it's really helped you as an educator, being able to talk to students, for example, who might want to engage this kind of music, having had quite a bit of experience with it?
Yeah, definitely. And my dissertation was on performance practice of interactive music, and it's available on my website at rachelyoderclarinet.com. So yeah, I've done some research in that area too, and it's nice to have a partner where your research and professional interests align and complement each other. It's really fun. It's also really challenging at sometimes, but Fractures was Greg's dissertation piece. So we collaborated on that, and he helped with all the tech side of my dissertation, and so it's really great to be able to work together like that. As far as students doing interactive works, I have a funny story. I had a student come to me. He was a senior in high school. He had never played any new music at all, nothing with a multiphonic or anything like that. But he's a very passionate guy, and at one point he found on my website I had posted a video of an interactive piece I played, which was probably the hardest piece I had played, or one of the hardest technically challenging things I had played. He found this video, he went and printed out the whole score, and he came to me at his next lesson and he said, I really like this piece, I want to play this piece for solo and ensemble contest.
And he doesn't understand why you probably had to suppress laughter.
Yeah. But on the other hand, it's so great, to see that level of passion for it. But I had to
tell him.
There are several reasons why this is not a good idea.
Well, he probably wouldn't be allowed either. All those pieces have to be approved.
Right. Yeah, they have to be on a list.
There is a list.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a shame, to be
I
honest.
would love to see the day when electroacoustic stuff makes it onto that list, though.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That would be really awesome.
Well, they can already use like the computer accompaniment, right? Like.
Yeah, that's electroacoustic music.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they can use the like play along CD stuff, right? And the whatever the finale follow thing is.
Yeah, what's it called? Well, anyway, the thing where it's supposed to actually.
Smart music, yes.
Smart music, yeah. And supposedly it feels you finish your cadenza and kick into the new part and it'll start playing again. My experience is that it doesn't always work that way. But we all laugh, but it's actually fantastic. I think we all agree that it's fantastic that a student is that enthusiastic. It makes me think about the movie about the crazy piano player. What is it? Where his kid has never taken piano lessons, and his dad says to the piano teacher, "Here, I want you to teach him this." And it's Rock 3. So like, that's what I want you to start with. Start teaching him lessons so that he can learn how to play Rachmaninoff Third Piano Concerto. That's just fantastic. So about the piece in particular, Fractures. Has it changed a lot over time? Because my experience with working with my electronics is you figure out what does and doesn't work better. And it seems like it would be a unique possibility when you live with the person with whom you're collaborating on this piece, and you can keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. Has it changed a lot since it was first premiered in the version that they're going to get to hear at ICMC?
Very much so. And yeah, I hope you can have Greg on at some point, and he can even talk more about this. But he's really into iterations and recomposing and doing a performance. Even the premiere of the piece, it was hardly done. There was hardly a score, and we played it at a bar in Denton along with some other stuff. But it started out being a very improvisatory thing, where I think he had like 6 or 7 sections, and he had ideas about what we could do in each section, and he had a lot of the electronics working, but there were a lot of improvisations. So at the end of the piece, he had said, just do some really long sustained tones in the low register and work chromatically and make some notes longer than others, and then kind of work your way down towards the end. So I did that. He did a recording of me doing that, and he ended up then just notating that. And so that's the end of the piece now. And it always ends the same way now, but it didn't when we first started. So we've probably performed it like 12 times now.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, it's very collaborative, and there are still some improvisational elements to it. There's a section that he has that's called the mantra section, where he has this gesture that is seen as a mantra, and we play the first one, and then the electronics immediately capture it and play it back in reverse, right as soon as I'm done playing. And then I go through this box notation where I can play similar gestures in any order, and I can improvise a little bit within those gestures. And then at the end of each one, Greg presses a button that immediately plays it back, and he decides on the fly whether it's going to be transposed or reversed or things like that. And then they start piling upon each other, and it builds up this huge texture. So there's elements that make it different every time, but we definitely collaborated every step of the way, and the result is a very fun score to play for a clarinetist because there's so much that's idiomatic, and of course there's so much just that techniques and things that I kind of like to do. So
yeah, when he bases his cool tricks off of what you're able to accomplish, then you sound like a genius. Like, this stuff is all easy for me. He just wrote it and I can play it. That's great. I mean, just the compositional process to me is very interesting in that, because I've written a piece for sax and electronics, and I play saxophone, and like it's hard to imagine exactly what it's going to sound like when it actually gets processed and put out of the loudspeakers, you know. So I'm glad that you guys have gotten to play that so many times, because so many of these pieces kind of like hit the composition studio concert or the dissertation stage, and then they fall fallow for many, many years thereafter.
Yeah. Yep, and it's fun for clarinetists. I hope other clarinetists might want to play it. And also the part for the laptop musician is a very it's a very musical part as well. So it's not just, you know, hitting cues. There are decisions to be made. And
is the score for sale?
I think it's probably available for a very low price.
Well, just if anybody's curious,
you know a guy.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, in case anyone's interested, it requires obviously a clarinet player and some way to amplify your sound. What program is required for the laptop part?
That piece is in Max.
Okay. All right. Lots of people out there who have Max, so if anyone's interested, clarinet and Max, we'll have a link to the video of her doing a fantastic performance of the piece in the show notes. Also, first, apologize that we didn't get you guys on the show when you were trying to fund your new album, but yay, it got funded.
Yeah, good job.
For the quintet, you mean, right?
Yeah, for the Madeira Wind Quintet.
Right.
Well, the last time you were on, we were actually talking about the quintet's first album, which was 5 at Play. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And we had one of your composers from that on, and this one is a little different. It's the collected, complete wind quintets of Don Gillis, previously unrecorded. So I had never heard of the guy. I pulled up his Wikipedia page and read about him some. So why don't you tell us about the project and why you selected this music?
Sure. Yeah, Don Gillis is an interesting composer. He was, the reason we found out about him is through the North Texas connection. He was the first composer to earn a master's degree from the University of North Texas. And they have, the UNT Music Library has a special collection of all of Don Gillis's scores and other materials. So that's how we found these quintets. And also, probably his most famous work is called Symphony No. 5½, and it was somewhat popular, I think, in the mid-1900s. He was, it sounds like, moderately well-known. He worked with Toscanini and the NBC Orchestra as assistant conductor and producer. Sorry, I have a cat situation here.
Yeah.
So, anyways, he is very cartoonish at times. He has a great sense of humor, and his wind writing in particular is just really great. Some of his stuff is reminiscent of like Raymond Scott's stuff with the Carl Stalling kind of cartoonish stuff. Oh, he has another piece. It's a march for band. It's called the January-February March. So, yeah, humorous titles, and we got interested in exploring his wind quintets when we found out they existed. And he has 3 suites for wind quintet. They are just really fun music to play, and they're out of print, and they hadn't been recorded. And so, just as we started reading them, we thought, you know, this is a great opportunity of something that we can contribute, a piece of a kind of a forgotten little piece of the quintet repertoire and a somewhat forgotten composer, although a lot of people actually do know who he is, especially I think in the band world, perhaps. So yeah, and you know, as a group, we're not really interested in making another recording of like the Nielsen Quintet or something. There's so many great groups out there that have recorded all of this like now standard repertoire. And so that's not the type of, we love playing those works, but that's not the type of recording project that we are as interested in as doing something like this. So.
Summer Music is a great piece, and I can listen to any one of a dozen other quintets play it.
Mm-hmm.
So just based on the titles of the pieces, they sound like, and based on the way you describe his music, they sound like they would be pretty accessible. Brer Rabbit's Dreams, They're Off, and Mr. Tortoise Wins the Race, which it's called The Fable of the Tortoise and the Hare, so everybody's familiar with this story. Does that one seem like children's music, or does it sort of go past sort of the program of the title and the movement titles?
I would say both. Yeah, we've actually used it for a children's concert, for educational stuff. You know, you can hear, oh, there's the turtle because the bassoon is playing this slow thing, and then there's the rabbit, it's going fast. So there is that element, but it's also just really well done. I think it's like Raymond Scott's stuff in that way, where it's kind of frenetic, back and forth, quickly juxtaposed styles. He uses the jazz idiom. He uses kind of spiritual sounding, like African American spiritual. He has some sections that sound modernist. His harmonies are kind of crunchy sometimes, like that. So he incorporates a variety of popular and classical genres into his works. And the third suite is more jazzy. The second suite is a little more like serious.
The second one is titled Three Sketches, which sort of suggests this is more along the lines of sort of absolute music and not as programmatic in it's the way it presents itself.
Right. Yeah. Just one more thing I would add about Don Gillis and this project is that luckily, or thankfully, I guess, we were able to raise the funds that we needed to put out the CD. But I did feel like in the process of fundraising and getting the word out that it's one of those projects that can fall through the cracks in today's music world, because there's this great new music community that's very passionate about living composers and, you know, recording new works, and then there's this kind of more traditional classical music community that is doing the old standards and promoting those. But then there's a lot of music that doesn't fit into either of those, and that's kind of where this project lies.
Right. The third suite is called "Gone with the Woodwinds," which it made me smile. Yeah. So I don't care if you're cheeky like that, as long as you're clever also, and that was pretty clever.
Right.
And this is the suite from which the name of the album will come, a 5-piece combo, the second movement of that third suite. I'm wondering, I've ever since I saw the title of the third movement, Frolic in Bebop Major, that one sounds like it's probably really hard.
It is pretty hard, yeah. Yeah, it's challenging. The third suite is the most challenging. The first suite could be played by a student group, so there's a big range. Mm-hmm.
Does Take 5 Blues, the first movement, like reference Take 5 from Dave Brubeck?
It came before Take 5, actually. So
really?
Yeah, these were written in the 30s. I think the late 30s is these groups. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Dave Brubeck is a poser.
There's the title.
So if this music kind of falls in the cracks, Rachel, who do you see as kind of the people that are the audience for this kind of music? Because you were talking about the people that are really into new music, and that's kind of the stuff that we usually listen to, and not the more Nielsen quintet kind of stuff. Who is this record for?
That's a good question. I think to a large degree it's for other wind quintets that are looking for repertoire to play, and it's for their audiences, It's for the audiences of those groups. And it's for, really, I think, I don't know, chamber music. I do think it's the kind of pieces that could be. It's just to develop the repertoire, and it's the kind of music that students could enjoy playing and things like that. So really, I think it's for anybody. I think that there's a wide variety of people that would enjoy it. It's just an interesting problem of how to connect with them today.
Well, actually, the question that I had was sort of taken up a little bit by what Dave asked. I was wondering if these are out of print, have you or anyone in the group expressed any interest in trying to remedy that situation and make them available for purchase somehow to go along with putting out recordings?
Definitely. Yeah, that's a goal. And it's a goal that I'm not sure if it will happen because we're in the process of trying to figure out what's going on with the copyright of these pieces, and because he is no longer with us, that question becomes a lot more complicated. So yeah, we're in touch with one of the family members, and we're trying to see if we can figure that out and put out our own Madeira Wind Quintet edition, because we kind of changed some things and fixed some things in the music. So yeah.
The copies of the score that you actually got and worked from, were they like very old, like onion skin, or were they handwritten, or what did you get?
Well, we got photocopies from because they don't lend out the special collection stuff. So we got photocopies. It's published by Mills Music back in the 30s. Pretty good looking parts. A couple of errors and some things just musically that we did to enhance the works.
Okay, I mean, I'm really looking forward to this because I've played in a quintet years ago, but there's not nearly as much literature to find for that ensemble, and I think mainly because it's hard to write for. Like, it is far, far easier to write a brass quintet than it is to write a woodwind quintet. It's like a micro orchestra, and it has, and because there's only one person per part, any orchestration problems you have are amplified to a large degree. So a difficult ensemble to write for effectively, and I think we could use more music for it. Because in terms of learning how to play chamber music, for the same reason it's harder to write for this ensemble than it is a brass quintet, I think the potential sensitivity you might gain playing in this ensemble is even more for the same reason, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there's so many colors available, and Don Gillis is one of those composers that really understands that and knows how to use that to great advantage. And you can actually hear, we have a couple of videos up from our tour that we did in February of the Suite Number 3 on our website at MadeiraWindQuintet.com, so you can check out the music and hear what it sounds like there.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting to do a restoration project for pieces that are less than 100 years old. Like, it's not unusual to read about scholars kind of, resurrecting and doing new scholarly editions or whatever of music that's 250 years old, right? You can have a new edition of a Palestrina something, and that's not unusual. But to do that for a work that is, young enough to still be within the term of copyright is really interesting. I think it's a really great thing to do, because I think that's music that does fall, to go back to the issue of falling in the cracks, is that stuff that is not old enough to have been in the canon and not new enough to have been digitized in its very earliest versions. There's a lot of that stuff that only ever existed on paper right before the digital revolution that has the potential to be lost. And it's one of the reasons I think it's so cool that you're doing this project.
Absolutely. So I know that you guys have learned the pieces and are performing them, and so this might be getting ahead of ourselves, but what's the next thing you guys are planning on working on? Do you have anything yet?
We are, we're right now, we're more focused on trying to we're working with Parma Recordings to release the CD I say CD, but also digital, in October. And so we're working on booking performances and Boy, it's just challenging. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that, but having a group trying to work a year ahead or more than a year ahead with scheduling a tour and concerts and things like that when some people are still in school and now we're scattered across the country. I'm in Seattle. 3 of the members are in Texas. One of the members just got a job in Colorado, and we're trying to stay together as a group. But and we do a lot of playing at colleges and as guest artists and things like that we get paid for. And our February tour, we managed to break even. We played like 8 concerts throughout Texas, and it was really great. But it's so hard to do that because with these schools and their budgets, their guest artist budgets, they plan like a year to a year and a half out. And then with 5 musicians trying to coordinate all of their schedules, and boy, I just, I don't know how people do it. I guess maybe they have the really, top tier groups have a agent that does all that kind of stuff for them, I guess. But yeah, that's a big challenge for us. So anyways, we're always working on that, just trying to coordinate and book performances. And as far as our next big project, we do want to get back to new music and working with composers, and we've also talked about exploring some music from Latin America. So yeah, we're going to see where all that goes.
Nice.
Well, that's great. I'm sorry. Somebody have something?
I was just saying nice.
Yeah.
I approve of all of those things, Rachel.
Sounds like a great direction.
You can put that. That's a pull quote. You can put on your record.
Yeah.
Petrogulo, I approve.
Or just
Just nice.
SoundNotion approved.
It's interesting, the story of graduate students getting together and forming these very good and very meaningful, both to the music world and personally musically to the people involved, and then having to deal with the trouble of everybody getting jobs and moving away. Damn it, we've heard it a lot, but I think the best ones, and I think you guys are up there, figure out a way to make it work. H2, the sax quartet stuck with it to the point where the music gods realigned and allowed them all to move to within like 150-mile circle of each other or something like that.
Music
So
God.
so stick with it. Stick
Yeah.
with it, please. We want you guys to keep going.
Well, thanks.
You
So
can't wait to see the official edition Madeira version of those scores and stuff too.
Yeah.
that would be very cool, and a great way to advertise yourself, because if the music really works, especially the one that works as sort of an educational piece, if you put it out there and it's got your name on it, and with a link to your YouTube page or whatever,
Here's the official recording as well. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, that would be great. And plus, you could have a package deal where you get the recordings and scores for X amount of dollars, and
It's actually it's a cool educational thing. It's similar to a thing that Kronos just announced that they were starting earlier this year. This kind of educational project where they were commissioning a bunch of different composers to write pieces at varying levels of difficulty, and they were going to release this kind of collection of progressively graded string quartets along with recordings of all of them. That they were kind of modeling it after Bartók's Mikrokosmos, and it sounds like a really cool project, and it seems like this sort of thing where you can find music that is kind of lost or create new music from commission and then introduce it as an educational thing is a really, really cool idea.
Yeah. Have you guys ever talked to anybody from Parma?
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
Bob Lord, the CEO of Parma, on the show
years
three
ago.
years ago.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I just saw they had released a collection of scores for brass quintet that they did I think some kind of a competition or a call, and then they released it as a collection on their website of all new music for brass quintet, and it's all going to be performed on a music festival they're doing, I think, later this summer. All those works are going to be performed. So they're doing some really interesting things, and we're glad to be working with them.
Absolutely. I don't know enough about it to say if this is true or not, but to me that seems like I haven't heard about record companies doing that kind of thing. Dave, do you know? I mean, is that a thing?
Well, I
that's
think
done?
this is their first one. They've been doing some press on it. I think it's their first one. It's more of a thing now that record companies are starting to branch out and do other stuff. I think that's kind of, and then other festivals kind of create record labels, right? Like Bang on a Can became Cantaloupe Records, and then all these other cool stuff from there, and Bang on a Can All Stars, and like little satellite conference tour things. Like everybody kind of does a little bit of everything now, but it's cool that Parma's doing that. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the whole concept of creating a recording as an independent music group, a classical music group, is I find very confusing in this day and age, because the line between getting a record deal and then total vanity publishing is completely blurred. And in a lot of cases, you don't even know, is this curated at all?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you get to know certain labels after a while, but most people don't know the difference between certain labels. And, even most groups have to pay a certain amount of money to the label to put something like this out, which is what we're doing, because nobody expects to make enough money to recoup the cost just by selling the actual product. So it's a really interesting time in music recording. And
new music people live in a different world. Like when you said we did a tour of a bunch of cities in Texas and we managed to break even, I was like, yeah, you didn't pay $800 of your own dollars in order to go out and go on tour. That's like
a minivan. We had a Dodge Caravan. It was awesome.
You're gonna get soft riding around in a minivan like that. You gotta be crammed into some small Japanese car.
It was sweet. It had 2 video screens, and we had our Zoom recorder. So after the performance on the tour, we're driving to the next place. We just plugged in the Zoom recorder USB into the minivan and watched what we'd just done and took notes for the next day.
That's like very rock band
Game
like.
film.
Yeah.
Game film.
That's very nice. So I'm actually very interested in what is a new fledgling project for you, the Signals for Images. I could sort of give some sort of synopsis of it, but why don't you just tell us what it is?
Okay. This is a brand new thing, and it's a new music-oriented blog / website that is being started and run by Jolene Mason, who's a bassoonist who I met at the University of North Texas. And it is going to be more, there's a lot of new music writing going on today, so it's going to be more performer-centric. And I think she's starting with woodwinds and having one person on each instrument write articles about their instrument in relation to new music. So we're going to see what happens. I think we're going to start publishing by the end of May.
Sweet.
Okay.
And,
and you are the current woodwind writer? Is that what we're hearing?
Clarinet. So clarinet. I think maybe we have like 4 writers right now: bassoon, oboe, clarinet, flute, I think. So yeah.
So I think that's actually, there's a lot of, there are not a lot in the terms of new music terms. I guess there are a lot of people who are writing about new music, but it seems like one way to get people to pay attention is to make it very specific to the nerd that you're looking at. So like you're going to be talking straight at the new music Clara nerd, and talking straight at the new music bassoon nerd, etc.
Right. Yeah.
That's portmanteaus with nerd.
Yeah. So absolutely, when that is like fully launched and considered published, if you will, send me an email and we'll plug it on the show.
Okay. Great.
I'm very much looking forward to that. So we already asked you to plug away, and we determined, saying you didn't have it. Well, you plugged what you had to plug, and we determined there was no news in the world of music this week. Is that right, guys?
That's right. The world turned. There were some performances, maybe a couple of records released, maybe some that won some awards.
Some dollars raised.
Yes.
So, dollars raised.
Well,
perhaps a contract or 3 signed.
I will mention the Cincinnati thing, not because it's news, but as an editorial statement.
It is non-news?
It is non-news. There was a story in the New York Times that I always, surf through the Times to see what's going on, and the news story was Cincinnati reaches a painless labor deal. So, orchestras...
that is unfortunately more newsworthy than it should be.
Orchestras not having strikes and lockouts involved in achieving their new labor deal is news. But my contention was, aren't we past that? Can't we not cover the fact that Cincinnati didn't have a strike? So that the editorial statement is, I'm glad we're getting to the point where things are settling down and, we don't have to talk about there not being an issue getting a labor deal.
So
Rachel?
Here's the thing, Sam. You're going to say that now, and it's the beginning of the summer, and this is when stuff starts to happen in the summer coming into the start of the fall season.
That's right.
You're going to say that now, and then in 4 weeks, there are going to be 3 orchestras that are near a work stoppage, and I'll remind you of this conversation, is what I'm saying.
I niced them.
It's going to be your fault, Sam.
Yeah. Rachel, or any music news that we didn't miss that you know about that's newsworthy?
Boy, not that I can think of right now.
Yeah.
We could talk about, since it's Mother's Day, we could talk about being a mom or being a parent in a freelance position.
Yeah. New music.
Do you have any experience with those things?
Yeah.
You're the only one who can speak about being a mom here.
Yes.
There's no dads on the panel today?
Not that I know of.
No. Yeah, well, I have to say...
Sam is a virtuoso of the dad joke, though.
Exactly.
That's it.
I have to say my son loves extended techniques on the clarinet. He listens to me practice. He plays while I practice a lot, builds things with his Legos. And then I'll throw in like a flutter tongue, and he'll just look up and just go,
So, panel, you know what I just realized? That
What?
We've postulated in the past how it'd be fun to take a baby and subject them to dodecaphonic music nonstop from the time they're born. This is Edward is going to get to be our experiment like that. He's going to be absorbing new music and crazy clarinet noises and electroacoustic weirdness his whole life.
Yeah.
So, and we're on.
Webern said that in 50 years that children would be, learning 12-tone music and singing it. That was what he
learning
said.
12-tone children's songs or something,
Yeah.
12-tone nursery rhymes, basically.
He was wrong.
Yeah.
But so this is SoundNotion 205. So on SoundNotion 4080, let's go ahead and book Edward for the show so we can ask him about his experience of growing up with new music nonstop.
We can do that, but I'm going to have to... Can we move it back to 11:30? Because I got a thing at 10.
Yeah. And one thing, sadly, B.B. King is in hospice care, and he's old, and he's in hospice care, so we'll likely be saying goodbye to him soon. And I'm saying that just because we often have people who end up passing right after we finish recording the show, so I wanted to mention that. I don't think I need to tell anybody who B.B. King is, do I?
You may need to tell some of your students.
Yeah. So I think that does it for the show, Dave.
Yeah, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It
thanks,
was
Rachel.
great talking to you. We'll have links to all of Rachel's projects coming up on our site in our show notes at soundnotion.tv/SN. If you have any thoughts on anything that we were talking about today and you would like to share those with us, you can do that on Twitter. We're at SoundNotion. We're also on Facebook, on YouTube. You can find us on Tumblr or wherever you like to do social networking things. And we have links to all of those things as well at soundnotion.tv/SN. Thank you so much for being with us, and we'll see you back next week.
Edward.
Edward.
All right.
Thanks, Rachel.